Today I want to talk about how perception is more important than reality. Now, being someone from science, you may find that hard to believe, but this is something, as someone who's also very logical and scientific, I had to learn the hard way. See, as a scientist or someone who loves science, you probably think, no, reality is what matters. You know, the world is how it is, and if you don't believe it's that way, you're gonna be, punched in the mouth one day by the world. If you don't believe in gravity, well, one day you're gonna jump off a cliff or something, and then gravity's gonna take you down. So inevitably, you're gonna learn how the world really works. Sometimes, in some circumstances, and for certain hard laws of physics, sure, but in a lot of things I found, especially anything related to human interaction, like working in a large corporation with other coworkers or dating relationships, I have found and learned the hard way that perception matters more than reality. So there was a time where I was in a situation where I was in a larger company, and I only conveyed how I was doing on one project to someone I was reporting to, and that was all their input or information on how I was doing with that job. And so, just being kind of, I guess, ignorant, I didn't realize that whatever I say is the perception that is seen amongst this person. I just thought, oh, it's good to be honest, good just to be transparent. But since I wasn't particular about that or aware of that, then by just lackadaisically giving a brief description of it, sometimes I accidentally paint the picture badly, when in reality, I'm doing pretty well. And unfortunately, especially in situations where there's a lot of busy people and all that stuff, it can just lead to a negative perception of you when in reality, that's not the case. And therefore, you really have to manage those perceptions well. So it's one of those cases where really being a clear communicator, putting and presenting yourself the best, and putting yourself and framing yourself and selling yourself in the best possible way, or in a accurate but also attractive way, and being attentive to that can really matter, because perception is really important. And obviously there's the flip side. There's the guy who lies all the time and paints it as really amazing when it's not. That's not always going to work, because maybe they'll go get found out eventually. But there's also the flip side, which is, like in my case, just being stupid or ignorant to it, and then not really paying attention, and then boom, all of a sudden I realized, oh shoot, I could have managed my perception better. But this also applies to dating and relationships. Maybe I could give you a better example. So there's plenty of guys, maybe you know some in your local community as well, but there's plenty of guys we've all stumbled across who are really not that incredible. And yet they paint this perception to the girl that they're much more amazing than they are. And there's many ways of doing this. It doesn't always have to be about, oh, look at me, look at my fancy car that he secretly rented or something like that. I'm talking just how someone conveys himself. The narcissist, the people who think they're so amazing, better than you, so confident. And all that confidence and stuff, it kind of works in a way. That arrogance, it works. I mean, women will say they're not attracted to an arrogant person, and yet you find them dating a bunch of narcissists or arrogant people. So don't listen to their words, listen to their actions. And so this example basically illustrates that there's plenty of people who kind of, they have this perception that they deserve the girl, that they're better than the girl. And then through all this, they end up getting with a girl that's technically out of their league, because they're really not as amazing as they believe themselves to be. But that confidence just works to an extent. And so there's all these ways that some men use of increasing their perception and their marketable appeal, sometimes to points where it's obviously fake. And I personally think that backfires. Like, you can't be, posting all these shots of you in a private jet when you're really just working as a janitor all day. I mean, you're going to get found out eventually. You can't sustain that lifestyle and prove it constantly. But there's some degrees of that you can learn from, because as someone who's more kind of less confident and less shy, who probably deserves to be more confident, because I am doing pretty decent in life. I'm not a multi-billionaire by any means, but doing pretty well. Then if anything, I should boost up my confidence, boost up my narcissism in a way, so I'm not insecure or unconfident or all this stuff, which I don't need to be, because that's not gonna help me with girls. So with all these things in mind, I hope you can start to understand where perception is more important than reality. If you're still not convinced, watch Survivor. Survivor, if you see a few seasons of that, you'll know that perception is huge on that show, because you're going on to a place where the context of the room is built off a situation where everyone's a stranger, and therefore the lies can become truths. It's kind of like an exaggerated situation, but that stuff happens too when you're like at a nightclub or a bar, or just a new situation, a conference where no one knows each other. And you'll see very quickly in that TV show that the perception of what this person is, good or bad, just gets multiplied and doubled down on, and people believe it and latch onto it quickly. So managing those perceptions is like a huge tactic to not get voted out on that show.